Hello and welcome to another episode of Yoga Chats brought to you by Samadhi Yoga Studios. My name is Fiona and I am your guest host today. I'm a yoga teacher trainee with Samadhi this year, and I am joined by two of my fellow trainees. Paul, say hi.
Hey.
And Emma.
Hi.
So thank you for joining us. Joining me, I should say. So really like what I wanted to discuss with you is just kind of about the course itself, give people an insight into our experiences and our journey. And if anyone out there is thinking about doing it, what advice would we have for them? So I suppose a good place to start is, what was your journey to yoga and to deciding to undertake this course? So Paul, I'll come to you first.
So I came to a crossroads in my practice, but also in my career. So in my practice, I had been doing it for about 8+ years. And I was going to class once a week, then I was going to class twice a week, then I was starting to do self-practice. And then I think just before COVID hit, I kind of decided, is it worth that I just do this once or twice a week in class and once or twice a week at home? Or do I take it up a notch and what's the next step? So I had been thinking about it for a while and people had said it to me, did you ever think of it? I went, don't be daft. And then I was kind of like, okay, I've stuck with it this long and I've kind of moved forward. So I think inevitably the next step was to give it a go. And career-wise, I wanted to move out of the industry that I was in and kind of wanted to give back to people, or I was starting to become a lot more interested in self-worth, self-development. So the idea of well-being kind of crept into it. So that's where I kind of got the idea of let's give it a go and take the plunge. Excuse the pun.
I think the whole idea of take the plunge really, that was exactly how I felt, where it was, how am I going to do this? And then it started to become more real the more I was talking to people and talking to Greg about it. And, really in that process, it was starting to talk to Greg and going to the classes that I was just like, oh, okay, all right, we're actually going to dive in here. Brace yourself. Emma, what about you?
Yeah, similar enough. I've been practicing about 10 years and it's always been something that was there that I was kind of drawn to, but I never really had the time. And then I think with COVID, it really just, one, put everything to perspective, and two, gave me the time that I needed to dedicate to my practice. So I found that it was a lovely way to kind of bookend my week, to mark my weeks during that time when everything just felt like there was never ending cycles of things. And yeah, yoga really gave my life a bit of meaning. And then especially as I say, Fiona, with speaking with Greg and then looking at the experience of the other yoga teachers on that class of 2021 podcast was really interesting to hear all about what they learned, and it just made me really excited to go on that journey as well and have that self-discovery.
There's nothing like a pandemic to kind of put everything into perspective.
That's it.
I mean, it was a lifesaver because when all your jobs went, mine did, everything went and you're left in limbo. It was a good way of grounding yourself in the mornings or even in the evenings.
Yeah.
And then I think after that, once you saw the benefits from that, whether you knew it at the time or not, it just was inevitable that you took the plunge.
Yeah, 100%. I think COVID for me, as hard as it was, I don't think I would be here, having undertaken this course without it, because it forced me, exactly as you say, Emma, it forced me to take a step back and reprioritize. It had been my intention to go abroad and do a yoga teacher training at some point, but it was very much with a viewpoint of oh, sure, wouldn't that be a nice thing to do? Wouldn't that be a good party story? It's yeah, I have a yoga teacher training cert, but it was actually during, when everything fell apart, you had to reprioritize your life. And I had time, and what I started doing was actually reading some of the philosophy books. And so I read the Bhagavad Gita, and it was actually that reading that really lit a fire in me for yoga as a practice and as a way of life. And I just felt such a calling to it from then. And it's just like, all right, that's it. I'm not waiting for the world to start again. You know, by now we were like a year into COVID, and it's like, this is going nowhere. I'm not sitting around. I'm not waiting. That life is happening now. I have to make it work. So yeah, started like scouting all of the studios in Dublin, and I landed with Samadhi and haven't looked back.
It's funny that you say that, Fiona, because I read the Gita before I started the course as well. And having that shift in perspective kind of explained through the story and in the Gita, it was really interesting because it was with COVID. As you say, you were kind of forced to take that step back. And then I think in the course as well, it brought a new perspective for me. And it really just ingrained what I was already feeling and made it a lot deeper and made me really appreciate my time and how I spend my time and yoga in general.
Yeah, because I think, you know, one thing that I really liked about this course, you know, we drill into the asana absolutely in an incredibly deep and technical way, and we learn all the anatomy. But, you know, it's not just focusing on the physical practice. We learn about yoga as a whole and get that full broader picture. So I think, you know, personally for me, getting a glimpse into that before joining the course was a really, really valuable thing. And to, you know, for me, I was very careful about which course I signed up to. I really wanted it to be a good match. And it was through talking to the trainers, through learning more about the course and appreciating the fact that, okay, you're not just going to learn how to teach an asana class. You're going to get to experience the full breadth and width of yoga as a whole through this. That was really the selling point for me.
It's funny that it wasn't the constant as other stuff was in my life, but it became the constant when everything else fell apart during the pandemic. Like I couldn't concentrate to read. I couldn't concentrate on films. I couldn't concentrate on reading plays, writing, anything like that. And then all of a sudden this became the constant, and I found it easy to get into it. And then, unlike the two of you, I was a complete yoga philosophy virgin, total rapscallion. I was like, you know, if somebody said black, I would always say white when it came to anything. I'm going to say religious, but I say that in the broadest way. Any kind of belief system, I would always seem to go the opposite. Or if somebody mentioned it, I'd do a legger. Yeah. Possibly because when I was younger and I had a shaved head, you know, I always had the Hare Krishnas run after me down the street. So I tend to just go the opposite direction immediately. And, you know, even without reading all the stuff that we've read through this year, I'd already started to adjust my thinking and how I presented myself, or how I wanted to be perceived, or how I wanted to treat others. But my basic philosophy was always there, but it was always hidden underneath, is to treat others like you would like to be treated. And so that started in the pandemic, where I apologized to people that I believe I did wrong to. I apologized. And where others weren't so nice, I grown up an awful lot and composed constructive emails or responses when situations arose, which I thought was very big of me, because I'm the person who literally will throw the first stone without even thinking of what, you know, I like to pull the pin of the grenade an awful lot. So I found a big shift.
There you go, folks. That isn't a good advertisement for yoga. Who knows what is? So did you have any, like, you know, right before starting the course or when you were signing up for it, like, did you have anything, like any hang-ups where you're like, or fears or anxieties about, like, I'm not sure about how this part is going to go?
Of course, definitely. You know, when you're taking on something like this, and I know Greg said it at the beginning, there's a little bit of kind of convincing with, you know, friends or family members who might not totally understand why you're doing this. That was really hard, because I met a lot of that resistance. But even for myself, even if I don't become a yoga teacher, I have learned and I have grown so much from this course. I feel like it's totally worth it. But
what kind of resistance did you meet? Was it just like other perceptions of yoga?
other perceptions and like, and then what are you doing that now? And is this you're going to be a new career? Or and it's kind of just people not fully understanding yoga. Maybe they've never experienced yoga before, and that's all okay. And knowing that that's okay.
I love that. Paul, what about you? I think you touched on it.
Well, I didn't meet any of the resistance because basically I didn't care what other people said about it. It was really funny. A lot of people said, yeah, well, what took you so long? It was like, we would have thought you would have done it by now. Others was like, oh, finally, you'll get a career. You'll actually, do something. And I was like, cheers. So that BA went and that MA went down the drain a few years back. Cheers, thanks. It was more resistance from myself. It was like, because to a degree, you're holding the mirror up to yourself when you do it. And I mean, it's probably a different conversation, but somebody did say to me, when you do it, be open to what comes up. Things will come up that you're not expecting. And I don't like the idea of even teaching yoga to be in front of people, presentations, public speaking, good luck to you. Now you want to get me, who's totally and utterly hyper conscious about their body. You want me now then to put myself in front of a class, twist into some formations, which I practically can't do, and I'm not that flexible to do. Yeah, sure, no problem. Sign me up. I'm game for that. So it was nice to talk to Greg, who kind of talked you off the ledge of why you possibly don't want to do it, yet kept it very real as to what you were going for. And, I, without even thinking, I just took the step, which was really funny. Now, looking back at it nearly 12 months later, I was like, oh shit, I've done it. I've actually taken the step. And like Emma said, regardless of whether you take it into teaching, I'm glad that I did it. And it's totally changed the way I look and approach things. I no longer get, agitated in job situations that used to result me like in really bad cramps, and if I was found on floors curled up in balls because of workload. Now it's just like, yeah, bring it on. I'm okay with it.
Yeah, that sense of peace is, really key. And it's something that really surprised me with the course as well, that I've been able to take so much of the yoga practice off the mat and into my everyday life, which is something I really struggled with before. But I see it's so much now, as I say, Paul, in my work, how I interact with people, how I respond to situations. I don't know how you feel, Fiona, if you feel something similar.
No, like 100%. Like I think it's only now as I'm closing or coming towards the close of the course and I'm really reflecting along my growth, not just in yoga in my practice, but as you say, how it translates to off the mat. And like, I've noticed that not even my self-confidence, but like, I don't take myself too seriously anymore. It's like, again, kind of bringing it back to the philosophy of things where, you have the right to work, but not the fruits of work, or practicing non-attachment where you're not attached to the results of the outcome of stuff. So I find myself, I'm more brave in trying new things because I'm not attached to the results. I don't place my self-worth in those things anymore, So yeah, but it's really subtle, the ways that it comes up and the ways that you notice its impact on your daily life. And it's really a remarkable thing when you do get to look back and see how far you've come and all of these beautiful little ways that it has shaped your life and your perception of life and your way of responding to stimuli. Because definitely when I was going into it, one of my major imposter syndrome going into it, where I'm kind of the exception in our class in the terms of I had never attended Samadhi before signing up to the yoga teacher training. So I was going in completely blind so to speak. And just totally like felt like, oh, I need to prove myself, or what if everyone else can do, splits and back bends and handstands, and I'm here struggling in the corner, when it's like, it's just not what it's about. And B, like, I'm no longer attached to those outcomes or those measures, because that's not what matters.
Yeah, it's kind of like, the pose wasn't the goal of the end result. It was kind of like the journey to get there. Well, you can take that to just about everything that you approach, that it's like you were saying, not about the fruits of your labor. You're not important to the point that you're, just a gateway for somebody else to find, themselves, find the pose, whatever. I just found it really eye-opening, third eye-opening, let's say, than I had actually anticipated.
Your ajna opening. That's your third eye chakra for those listening. We're nerding out over here. Do we get bonus points in the exam for that? I
think so.
Yeah, I think so. So, what advice would you give to someone who was considering taking on a yoga teacher training course, who's maybe, back where we were a year ago and having all these questions or curiosities about it? What would you say to them?
Be open. Be very, very open. Don't go in cynical. What you're probably doing at the moment, which is the majority is asana practice, is only a small sliver of what you're actually going to go through for the year. And like I said earlier, somebody said to me, just be open to what you may bring up. It may, pose difficult questions, but just to, excuse the pun again, but breathe through it. Don't kind of contract and get really, upset about it or closed off. Just kind of explore it. And it's really funny that every time God is mentioned in any of our readings, that would have closed me off. But I learned to look past that and kind of put my stamp on what or who is God. And so it became so much more, I don't know how to say it. I became so much more open to what I could get out of it. And all of the kind of assignments that you do it from a personal point of view. Don't do it just to get it done and throw it in. I think if you're willing to take that little dive into your experience and how you see stuff, I think you benefit at the end of it to be a better person and a better tutor, hopefully, if that's what you go on to.
For me, I think don't overthink, and it goes back to it's all about the journey, not necessarily the destination. Both in undertaking the course, don't overthink your ability or what you think is your inability. Go for it and be kind to yourself on that journey as well. You will face challenges, as Paul's saying, but in your practice and, in certain aspects of the course, whether that be philosophy or a particular asana or using props or anything, just be kind to yourself as you go along that journey.
As a wise tutor said to us, who shall remain nameless, breathe into the intensity, enjoy the space. And I think that's, from your poses to your mental clarity is, take it all head on, but relax into it. Don't kind of let it get on top of you, and you'll find a lot more answers that way. Sometimes it'll be good, sometimes it won't be, but you're able to, it's almost just like, it's like a spring clear out.
It is.
100%. And I think, one thing that I appreciated about the course was, it's structured to carry you along gently. So what might feel really overwhelming at the start, and you're like, how am I going to get from A to B in like 10 months or so? But, what I have found is that like the challenges of the course rise to meet you exactly as you're ready to meet them. And it's like, just when you start kind of hitting a comfort zone, they'll add in another little surprise. And here's an extra little challenge. And oop, today we're doing this. And it's like, oh God. So you never get too comfortable, but it's very gentle the way it just pushes you along through. And yeah, I think as we've highlighted, it's only really when you get towards the end, you see how far you've come. We have our exams now in 2 weeks, and, we're discussing about how when you actually go back and start studying it, you don't even realize it when you are learning it, how much you're learning and how much information you're taking in and processing and putting it all together. It's really, really incredible. But yeah, I think if I was to give one piece of advice, I mean, apart from what you said, really, take it one day at a time, but also, accept that you are going to have ups and downs with it. There was, for me, coming up to Christmas, things got really, really hard. My motivation went out the window. My physicality went out the window. I just got totally burnt out, but you ride the wave with it. And it comes back to you. You just trust the process, stick with it.
Somebody said there's more than one way to a place. And I think from the scriptures that we've read and then the tutors that we had, everything comes from not just a base, a foundation, but also then personal experience and different perceptions. And I think because it's not so blinkered and set in stone, what we have to learn, that you're getting all these different angles to it, you will attach yourself to one side of it or another that will carry you through. Like you said, the bad experience, like I remember our first exam in January, spectacularly failed. I never forget it. And I really panicked. And I remember I sent that night when we were sitting there doing it, I said, I am done and I'm switching off my camera till the others are finished. Do not ask. And then I started to approach all those kind of monthly assessments with, what have I learned? What can I learn? There's so much more space. And then, like you said, when they throw in something new, like Lola Asana, which is not on the syllable, but she has cropped up a few times, you suddenly realize you have so much more to learn. It's never going to stop. And I think if you take that approach of being an open book, dare I say it, and just absorb it in and look forward to it. Like, I want to know what's next. What can I go on to next? But you can do it at your leisure because we're not going to do it on a course.
Yeah.
But it's kind of giving you that kind of motivation.
I think exactly what you say, like, there are all the multiple paths to the same destination. It's like different roads up the same mountain. And I feel one thing that I love about the group is everyone is on their own different path up the same mountain. We came to this for different reasons, with different backgrounds and different perspectives, and learning from each other that there are different ways to the same goal has been really interesting, because I think it's easy when you have your own practice to think that your way of thinking or your way of doing things is the way of doing and thinking about things. But yeah, I've loved getting to know each of you and everyone's different take and route up the mountain, we'll say,
Definitely. It is really nice to see everybody going on their own paths and learning as they go. And with the teachers themselves, they bring so much, knowledge and experience. And that's been one of the best things for me, is getting to learn, because they're all so individual and they all bring their own take on it. It's been really nice to just have that experience with them.
It's nice to see everybody's individual personalities of how they teach or how they approach. And I think it's really welcoming. So if you were a student in their class, it would be such a nice way to learn. And then with the tutors that we have, I think some of them, without them knowing, may say or do something that suddenly becomes a complete gateway for you that maybe you've been stuck on. So for me, I was always stuck in my head that you start in Tadasana, you do your Suryas, you have, a regimental thing. And all of a sudden somebody just threw it out and goes, you've got 15 minutes. Here's 2 poses. I want you to have a 6-step program. And then all of a sudden everything just exploded. And it was like a kid in a candy store running around. Ooh, I'll have a pinch of this and I'll have a pinch of that. I loved it. And now I get excited about doing stuff and approaching stuff.
That's it. It kind of gives you insight into how you want to teach as well, your own practice. Like, well, what kind of teacher do I want to be? And cherry picking all the best bits from all the teachers you've ever had.
And the other thing is it makes you face the poses you don't like. Yeah. And dare I say it, don't practice or didn't practice. It makes you go, okay, here's your challenge. You have to overcome this before you can go any further. You need to get to grips with it in some way. And you don't need to be an expert in all of them, but you need to be able to get in and out of it safely and to show the benefits to your students. And I think that in itself makes you conquer little mountains every day.
Absolutely. No, truly and we're not getting paid to say this. We've been given a free rein on this podcast, but truly the quality of the teaching and of everything has been exceeded my very high expectations. 100%.
10 out of 10 would recommend to a friend.
10 out of 10. Absolutely. So, okay, last quick fire question. What has been the best part of the training or highlight for you, Emma?
I think learning how to take yoga off the mat for me has been the best thing. It's really made me realize that, I can take that step back and think and detach, as we discussed before. But learning just not to take myself so seriously, and yoga is in every part of my life now, and that's the best thing for me.
Thank you, Paul.
Conquer the breath and you conquer just about everything. And I am now a convert to pranayama. Who would have thought that the only breath that ever came out of me was from a can of Heinz beans? And now I do it daily and I cannot not do it. So I think, you're right. Don't take yourself seriously. But the other one is there's so many different aspects to yoga than just physical practice.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm struggling to answer my own question now. What has been the best part of the training? I feel like the sense of community that I've gotten from this has been incredibly enriching. I remember my first conversation with Greg when I was interested in it, and I was explaining the challenge that I had of, I had been traveling and everything like that. I didn't really have a yoga community in Dublin. I had no consistent practice with any particular studio. And I felt like I was really missing that, going back to what I said, when you're in your own practice, you're in your own head. It's yoga is a solo journey, and it's the journey inward and towards yourself. But having your community around you is really important as well. And integrating into the Samadhi community has been one of the favorite parts for me. That's it from me. So I'd like to say a special thank you to Paul and Emma.
Anytime.
You're going to regret that. I'll be pulling you back next week. So we do finish on the 24th. So watch this space. There'll be a new injection of new teachers into the pool of yoga teachers in Ireland. And I'd like to give a special thank you to you, our listeners. If you're still with us, I hope you enjoyed listening to us talk about the course. And if you have any questions or are interested in learning more about the course, do drop us an email or drop Samadhi an email. Getting to talk to the trainers one-on-one before undertaking this is incredibly valuable, and applications are open. So good luck and thank you.